Okay.
Yes.
You know what?
Maybe.
I don't know what we talked about yesterday.
I don't either. You know why?
I do. We talked about elders. We talked about praying for elders.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Oh, good. But what about today?
Today,
Let's talk about
today we were talking about
prayer. Yeah.
What are we talking about it on?
We are
YouTube.
We're in the first prayer in Deuteronomy.
We are.
We're up to that one.
There are only
You'll never guess who's praying.
God.
They're praying to God.
Oh man, I got things like turned
No,
around.
come on. I bet you can do it.
Okay,
I mean, somebody
Okay. Let's see.
in
Deuteronomy, Moses dies, so Joshua.
This is the first prayer in Deuteronomy, though, not the last one.
Well, there aren't that many prayers in Deuteronomy.
That's true.
Like on our list, we only have two spoken prayers,
and then
there are like
references to prayer.
5 references to prayer.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
That episode's got to be fun.
Anyway, no.
Okay.
Of course, it's Moses.
Has anyone else prayed in the past like
month?
3 books.
Yeah, not since Genesis. I mean, it's like not since Genesis has anyone prayed. Moses has prayed for everybody from Miriam to Pharaoh.
No one's prayed for 40 years other than Moses. Would it be 80 by now?
80, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, 120 for that matter. I mean, well, there was that one back in Exodus about the children of Israel groaning to the Lord and him hearing them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just a kind of, if you can call that a prayer. I don't know. Anyway, so we are talking about Moses praying. This is a heartbreaking prayer. This is one of the saddest prayers in the Bible. I mean, even more sad than Moses praying for God to kill those people.
Was that sad, though?
Well, it was sad for those people. But Genesis. Oh, let's not go back to Genesis again. Deuteronomy.
We're starting over, people.
Let's start again. Deuteronomy chapter 3, verses 24 and 25. 59 words long in at least some translation or another. I wonder if that's in the Hebrew or if they counted it in some English translation.
I don't know what they counted this in. In case we haven't talked about it yet, the list of prayers that we're using is not ours.
Yeah, it's not totally.
We didn't want to take the 10 years to go through and count every single prayer in the Bible.
We've added some to it, and we've adjusted the list, but we took an already made list. I think it was.
We do adjust a little bit because every now and then we'll come across one that's marked on the list as a prayer, and we're like,
right. Well, and my dad sent me a whole nother list too, so we're using that one and this one, and then if we find something that we think should be discussed,
lots of researchy things coming together to make less videos. Hope you enjoy them.
Yeah. So anyway, Moses is. I mean, all the things that Moses asked God in all those prayers.
Yeah.
And I can't think of any other time where God said no.
Yeah.
Except, the whole complaining about, don't make me go get the children of Israel, get somebody else. God said, no, you're going. But as far as him praying, praying for people for God to forgive people, for God to stop killing people, for God to kill people, for, whatever. He prayed all these prayers for people to be healed, for the plagues to stop for Pharaoh. I mean, all these things he prayed, and God always answers them. But now Moses is praying this prayer. O Lord God, you have only begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do such works and mighty acts as yours? Please let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that good hill country of Lebanon. I mean, what a prayer. I mean, let me get to go into the land that you promised. I mean, I've been leading these people for 40 years in the wilderness. Just give me this one thing.
Yeah.
And God said no.
Yeah, I have God's actual answer on there.
Yeah.
But the Lord was angry with me because of you and would
Because
not
of
listen
you.
to me. And the Lord said to me, Enough from you. Do not speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and look at it with your eyes, for you shall not go over this Jordan.
But he did at least get him up on the mountain to look at it.
You know, as sad of a prayer as it is, I think it brings with it a very important lesson and a reminder of something that we've talked about on this channel a couple of times before. We're not the main characters in this story.
No.
God has called us his children, but really he created us and then we turned away from him, and he saved us and we still turn away from him.
Yeah.
And we are indebted to him over and over and over and over again, so much that we could never in a million years have the slightest hope of repaying him.
Yeah.
This isn't our story. We are debtors, we are servants, and occasionally God has to do just enough to remind us of that. This is one of those times where sometimes we're like, God, I've been working for you so long. And in Moses' case,
so hard and so
80 years. He was
40 really. Well, I mean, 40 years of leading the people.
Let's say 40 years then. 40 years of leading these unruly people through the wilderness. And he asks for just one thing for himself in all this time, as far as we know. Just one thing for himself. And God says no. 40 years of serving, and God said, And
it also shows the difficulty of leadership. The Hebrew writer, and we talked about this a little bit in the lesson on elders, and so I won't belabor the point, but remember the Hebrew writer saying,
would have
before.
We haven't done it yet.
Anyway, but in the lesson on elders and leadership in the church, the Hebrew writer of Hebrews. I hate to say Hebrew writer because like all the Bible writers were Hebrew writers, just about. So that doesn't distinguish
except for maybe the scribe who wrote Daniel, because I've heard that is in Chaldean.
Yeah, but it was probably, I don't know. I still think it was probably Daniel that wrote it. He just knew Chaldean. But anyway, well, I mean, you got maybe some of Paul's letters were penned by somebody who was a Gentile, possibly, but for the most part, Hebrews. Anyway, so the writer of Hebrews says that we should obey those that have the rule over us. He's talking about the church and the way, because they have to give an answer and before God, and so that they'll be able to do it with joy and not with sorrow, and so you would see the difficulty of being a leader and having to give an answer, not only for yourself but for how you led, and for the people that were following you to some degree. And I mean, it doesn't mean that Moses is responsible for the people's sins, but notice he says, the Lord was angry with me because of you. People can provoke leaders. Children can provoke parents. We're seeing right now, with there's a lot of strife in our country now between law enforcement and certain segments of society because they've been provoked to anger because of some events, and we have to be cautious with that. It's easy, the fathers, provoke not your children. So it kind of can go both ways, and there's a lot of danger of us allowing somebody else to get under our skin and cause us to do something that's going to violate God's law. And that's what happened to Moses. He was supposed to speak to the rock. He was mad with the people, and he took credit for it. Was must we bring and hit the rock instead of speaking to it? And
As James says, any man that can control the tongue is a perfect man and is a master of the whole body as well.
Yeah, you can master anything if you can control that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a difficult thing. And so the other thing, though, here is, I mean, even though this seems sad, Moses doesn't get to go to the promised land, but we have it on good authority that even though he didn't get to go into the land of Canaan,
he got to go into the promised
he
land.
did get to go into the spiritual promised land. He did get to go be with God. He got to go to heaven. And we see him later talking with Jesus.
I just got to say, for the little glimpses that we got of his work over those 40 years, if he didn't make it into heaven,
we're all in trouble.
Yeah, we're all in a lot of trouble.
Forget it. Just give up now. Yeah.
But on the topic of leaders, and again, not to stress the point too much because we'll
have the whole lesson about that.
Yeah. So. Although, again, I don't know exactly what we're going to cover in that, so I want to do a little bit of it here. Since Moses did make it into heaven, which we have on good authority, and the people that he was in charge of were very difficult.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know, gives me a lot of hope for those who want to be leaders in the church and those who are leaders in the church as far as them getting into heaven, because being a leader is incredibly challenging, and there's a lot that you have to deal with and put up with. And while the people that you're in charge of does in part reflect on you, as we can see, I mean, God killed off an entire generation of Israelites because they weren't right with him.
Yeah.
But how did that reflect on Moses? He still got to go into heaven.
Yeah.
And even though an entire generation of people were so sinful that they died on his watch, all except for two. That
603,000 and something or another minus two, or I guess if they're wives.
Yeah.
So.
That gives me some hope as a young person that if I grow up and I wind up becoming a preacher or an elder, like, I'm obviously going to try and do the best that I can to serve God and to serve the church and be a good Christian. But it also takes a lot of weight off of my mind and shoulders knowing I don't have to be perfect. I can't be perfect. And
you don't have to make the people following you be perfect.
Yes, because that's, as they say, even Jesus handpicked people and he had a traitor. So if the Son of God couldn't
make people do everything they were supposed to. Yeah. But this is a powerful prayer. It's a powerful event in the life of Moses and really in the history of the world. To show us a lot of things about the way God works and the way leadership works and everything. But Paul talks about that too. He talks about if somebody's teaching and preaching and sharing the gospel with others, and even if their work gets burned up, they can still be saved.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want that, obviously. We want, when we study with people and try to lead people closer to God, try to teach people about God, we want them to be faithful. We want them to always do what's right. But even if they don't, it won't necessarily ruin us. And that's for parents too. I mean, we need to talk about praying for parents and things too. So
I do have fun with that.
Oh, you need to pray for your parents.
No parents. No.
Oh,
I don't know.
Well, who are? I walked in the hospital. They bring this little baby. They hand the baby to me, and they go, "Here you go." So beats me. Maybe he's not mine. I mean, they came in from outside the hospital. I mean, They like walked in the door. I was in the waiting area, there to see my wife because she was in the hospital there. And these people walk in from out in the parking lot and hand me a baby.
If we're being honest, like my build's nothing like yours.
No, that's true too. That's true too.
Yeah. For that matter, as he will often say, my build isn't like his was when he was my age. So
that's true.
If you're just like, well, he's got an extra 30-something years on him, well.
How old do you think I am?
82.
That would make you 50.
Well, you're the one that always says I'm the one who's 80.
I thought you were the 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, leadership, the responsibilities, the difficulties,
and
allowing other people to provoke you to sin,
and in many cases, lack of rewards.
Yeah.
Leadership, mentoring, all those things are very often a thankless job.
But the good still outweighs the bad sometimes. When John says, I rejoice when I hear that my children walk in faith.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and he's not talking about his physical children, although, we would say the same thing about our physical children if they walk in faith. But even though anyone that we've mentored or led or taught or encouraged, when we hear that they do good things, that they follow God, that's a beautiful thing. Anyway, we need to wrap this up.
Yes, we do. So I hope you learned something. Hope it was interesting, helpful for you.
And hope you'll give those in leadership over you an easier time. Help make it a joy for them instead of a sorrow.
Is difficult. Hope you will come back tomorrow, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Adios.